Thank you, Fahim. That's brilliant. Yeah. Thank you for making time for us. You know, we are honored, and so many people have been messaging me about this interview who are at work, but this will be recorded and we will post it on IG Live later on, and we'll post it on YouTube as well. But there are people who will join us live and also can ask questions. So thank you for joining us from all the way from Kabul. You know, everyone here is thinking about you and everyone and worried. And first question is, how are you? So just to let you know, Fahim is a political analyst and also, you know, head of international relations at Kardan University. And he's just joined us live from Kabul for those of you who've just joined in. So tell us how you are, and, you know, how's your family, and, you know, the people here who've been watching the news and painstaking images have been coming out. So just first of all, tell us how you are.
Well, we are fine, alhamdulillah, till now. We are safe, although it is an uncertain situation. Everybody is in a wait and see situation, that what is going to happen next morning and how the things will unfold. But overall, thanks to God that there was a bloodless transition of power to Kabul. So there hasn't been any battle in Kabul, and that helped people to be safe, and largely people are unharmed at the moment. So we are fine.
And you're working at university, so are you still going to work, or is it temporary on hold, so you're at home?
Right now we are on temporary hold. We have called our campus off because we have to get new directions and as well as instructions by the higher education ministry regarding the co-education and higher education overall. So until we have clear or at least some instructions, some new instructions, we have called the campus off.
Okay. Well, so were you born in Kabul? You know, just before we move into the interview, people might want to find out a bit more about you. So are you from Kabul, or you migrated from another part of Afghanistan?
See, basically, I am a Sayyid whose origins and ancestors used to live in a province which is in east of Afghanistan called Kunar. But then, as part of a process of nation building, we were transferred or sent to north of Afghanistan, which is Kunduz. So my family right now lives in Kunduz. I basically belong to Kunduz, but I am born in Kabul and I'm raised in Kabul, and right now I'm living in Kabul. So I drink the water of 3 provinces of my country.
Oh, brilliant. So you can tell us more. Okay, so you know, we'll start with the interview, but we want to, it's a conversation based, and you know, it's, you know, you don't have to give so much of the details if you don't want to, and it's more of a conversation based interview. So I just wanted to highlight some of the facts because there's a lot of spotlight on the political situation in Afghanistan, and less spotlight on the devastating situation that is unfolding on ground, which is the humanitarian catastrophe. So Afghanistan is the 7th poorest country in the world. Just now, US has seized 9.5 billion worth of reserves, which was held in Afghanistan's central bank. 460 million pound, which was COVID relief, has also been put on hold. According to World Food Bank, 40 million people are already food insecure prior to this escalation. And food prices are now rising up faster than ever before because there's a lot of uncertainty. 75% of the government budget relied on the international grants, which are now put on hold. An average person in Afghanistan earns less than $2 a day. And prior to this escalation, there was drought and there was pandemic, you know, like everybody else. Afghanistan was suffering, but there was decades of violence and conflict and misery and the trauma that people have gone through. You know, I think we can talk about that for hours. There is no substitute, but the least the international community can do is provide towards the basic needs and attention that people in Afghanistan need towards humanitarian crisis. You know, the economy, from what I've seen in the reports, is collapsing. It was already collapsing because of the lockdowns, and now there's been, another war, and there has been a war for 20 years. So today's interview will focus on, this humanitarian disaster that is unfolding on the ground, and there's lots of it's been complicated. How we deliver aid and support people in Afghanistan has been complicated. So my first question to you is, why has US put 460 million COVID relief on hold? Why have they done that?
See, this has more of a political reason, because one of the issues that now matters to the international community is the nature and composition of future government that will be formed by the Taliban. The international community wants the Taliban to have an all-inclusive, wide-ranging government where all segments of the society, like different political parties, opposition, previous government officials, and as well as other politicians, are being included. Now, this is a test of the Taliban, and the international community is trying to use these funds and all these things as a leverage to pressure the Taliban in order to have an inclusive and widely accepted government, which is again hugely affecting the economic and humanitarian situation in Afghanistan. For example, this is the sixth day that banks are closed, ATMs are dried up. There's no money in it, and people have run out of cash, and we still don't know when the private banks will be open, when the ATMs will run, because DAB, or the Afghanistan Bank, which is the central bank of Afghanistan, is still closed because of the assets frozen, and until the central bank does not function, the private banks will remain closed. So you can imagine how the people are cashless and as well as foodless.
Also, the international community is saying that they want a political settlement and so the unrest finishes. But do you agree that the economical unrest causes political unrest as well? So basically, if they don't fix the economical or humanitarian issues first, it will also cause the political unrest. And what they're wanting to do right now is they want there to be a political settlement, and then they can provide the humanitarian aid. But do you think it should be done other way around? Because it's the common people in the middle who will suffer and are being punished, between all parties.
See, as it seems, apparently, for the international community right now, the political know-how or the political situation matters more than the economic and humanitarian.
Exactly.
This has a reason, because if the Taliban does not come up with a all-inclusive government, there is a risk of a civil war or uprisings by other by those people who are not willing to either join or does not see themselves in the future government. And if there is another war starting in any pockets of the country, then that will have dire consequences. So in order to facilitate the way for economic and economic development and humanitarian assistance.
Okay, it's frozen, I think. Okay, guys. Okay, I think it's freezing a little bit. Sorry, guys, I think we've lost Fahim. Just bear with me. I'll invite him again. Thank you for all of you that are joining us. Fahim, who is a political analyst and also head of... Okay, Fahim, are you back? I think we lost you. Okay. I think there's some technical issues here. I will have to invite him again. So Fahim, who's a political analyst and also was born in Kabul, head of international relations for Kardan University, is joining us from Kabul.
I have joined from my phone, so I'm getting calls. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So right now, as it seems that the political settlement is a priority, and they think that if a political settlement is reached and there is an all-inclusive government agreed by everybody, that will facilitate the way for further or for future economic development and as well as international assistance and as well as humanitarian assistance flowing to Afghanistan. Which according to a humanitarian would be a wrong decision, but according to the circumstances, you really need a government to be formed so that the political machinery functions, and then the rest will be facilitated.
So what is the general consensus in people in Kabul, like your friends or the ones who live outside? What are they thinking of doing in terms of their own financial planning? Are they storing food, or are they trying to access some savings, or if they have anything, depending on other family members? So what are they doing to support themselves if in those situations?
Well, one thing is clear, that everybody is in a surviving mood. People who had a little bit of savings, they are using that. People who were daily labor people, who used to support their family by daily labor, I think they are in a very bad situation. And those families who were headed by working females, or household head of the family was a female, I think they are also in dire situation because there were no savings. So right now they are either running their livelihood through help, assistance, or PT loans from relatives, neighbor, or whoever they know, and that is how everybody is surviving at the moment.
I mean, it's really sad, and I don't know how much people in Afghanistan can endure on top of everything that's happened. There's lots of volatile scenes coming out of the airport, and I also know that if you want to comment on that, and I also know that there's 99% of the people who are not at the airport and are staying in Afghanistan and are in great trouble, like we've discussed. So do you want to comment on the situation on the airport, that why is the evacuation process so bad or handled badly?
I think the collapse of the government and the Taliban take over of Kabul have surprised everybody, and also have caught so many of the guards. Neither the international community or the coalition forces nor the government was ready for such a huge evacuation to be happening in 1 to 3 or 5 days or within a week. We at least needed a 3 month to 6 month period of transition where this evacuation could have happened. But as we see, on the day the Taliban arrived to Kabul, the president abruptly fled Kabul and things crumbled. And then all those people who apparently seem threatened by the Taliban, or those people who have worked with the US and coalition forces, SIV holders, and all these people, they just have to run towards airport in order to ensure their survival. And then things went into chaos. Now, one of these the blunders that the US and its allies did was also that in the first minutes or hours of the evacuation, they started evacuating or putting everybody on the plane who were in the airport. Now, there were some people who were not US collaborators, who did not have SIV visa or any trade fees to them, but they just went to airport in order to flee. And then they were flown in the flight. And then the rest of the people came to know that even if you don't have a document, even if you don't have any sort of visa, they are evacuating you. And then the common man, also the ordinary people, also surged to the airport. Now there are different types of people in the airport waiting outside at the outskirts of the airport. There are the ones who are genuinely a threat according to the US definition of whatsoever they have so far mentioned. There are the ones who have visas and who have all the official documents, and then there are the ones who does not have anything, but they are waiting, presumably, that we could be evacuated without any evidence, and that has made the scene very, very chaotic.
Mm. You know, also apparently there's been talks between US and the government and Taliban for quite a while, and Talibans were advancing quite fast as well. And when they reached Kabul, they said they were waiting for a peaceful transition. So why were these people rushing? Because they didn't believe them that they would be safe, or they would be attacked, or what were they? Including US Army, could they not have spoken to Taliban and say, give us 2 to 3 months to evacuate and, you know, make some sort of agreement, or they couldn't have done that?
See, the people's search towards the airport was an act of desperation. Some feared the Taliban prosecution, and some fled because they thought that there will be no more work for me available in this country, and some do not see themselves aligned with a life at the Taliban's rule. So there are different factors playing out, and this has made people to go to the airport. Also, I think evacuating such a large number from one airport in the country or from one spot is also another problem. The US and international community or the coalition forces could have multiple spots of evacuations. There is the Bagram Air Base, there is the Kabul airport, there are other areas from where they could have evacuated people from multiple places, so that the entire evacuees would have not gathered at one place. But let's see. I think overall the management and the planning for the evacuation so far does not seem to be successful or a good one.
I think that everyone's seeing that, and it's really horrible to see those babies and women just crying and screaming just outside the airport. You know, because Moonlight Trust is a charity that actually 60-70% of our work focuses on refugees and IDPs, internally displaced people around the world. And we've done a lot of work in refugee camps in Greece, in Serbia, in France, in Turkey, and like, you know, so many of them were Afghan refugees, and we met them, and we know their resilience and commitment to give it out to the world. I just wanted you to tell us a bit more, as a whole, the Afghan refugee situation around the world, and also the people who are internally displaced, and also share if you've got any figures as well, please. Okay, it's frozen again. You're just gonna have to bear with us. Fahim is live from Kabul. Okay, I think we've got some technical issues. We'll just wait until we can reconnect with Fahim. Thank you for everyone who's holding with patience. I mean, it's not easy for us to connect, especially right now with people in Kabul, and we're just grateful that we can have this opportunity with Fahim. And I just wanted to share. Hi, Fahim, are you still with us? Okay, I just wanted to share a story about the Afghan women that I have worked with. Okay, I'll just send him another invite. So I just wanted to share a story about some of the Afghan women that I met in the refugee camps in Greece, and what some of them did was, when I went to visit their camp, because we were supporting them, helping them with aid, it was their tradition to give something to the guests, and they didn't have anything. Okay, Fahim, I think we lost you.
I don't know. This is urban connection, so.
I know. Oh, so it's okay. I think it's being recorded, so we can share it with the people later on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So right now we have 2.5 million registered refugees worldwide, and we have almost 3 million refugees in Pakistan only, from which only 1.4 million are registered and the rest are unregistered refugees. We have almost 18.4 million people who are in dire need of humanitarian assistance in Afghanistan, who need immediate help and assistance because their livelihood is destroyed, and they have lost their jobs, and they are in a bad situation. We are further there is totally there is almost 3.5 million people who are uprooted recently, from which 270,000 have been displaced only after January 2021. And you can see this is such a huge number for a country like Afghanistan, who is hardly able to do any relief activities for its people. So only in Kunduz, in 1 week of infighting, there were 8,000 people displaced to various neighboring provinces in Kabul. You have right now, according to some reports, 5.5 million people in Afghanistan are in list of food insecurity, and poverty rate at the moment is 54%. I think this is a true definition of humanitarian disaster. If I could say so.
I don't know how worse it could get. So what about the IDPs in Kabul? So how many people are in Kabul from other places? Because I think you mentioned the other day that there's a large number of IDPs within Afghanistan, even within Kabul.
Yes. What happened that when the February 2020 deal was signed, and when the evacuation happened in Afghanistan, what happened largely was that a lot of the governmental posts and battalions in the urban Afghanistan were evacuated, and they had left the rural Afghanistan, particularly the far remote districts, to the Taliban. The Taliban's first surge was on rural Afghanistan, and the moment they started advancing on rural Afghanistan, the people largely started coming out to urban centers, leaving their homes and villages and districts. And once the urban Afghanistan was slipped to Taliban, after that the Taliban started attacking on urban centers or the large population centers in provinces of Afghanistan. So any province which would come under attack, people would further leave the province and come to Kabul, because they knew that presumably everybody thought that it would take long time for Kabul to fall to the Taliban. So basically people started coming to Kabul, and before the Taliban reached to Kabul, according to the data, there were 7 million people in Kabul. Now, all of them were not IDPs, because Kabul also has its own inhabitants, which is in large numbers. But there were over millions of people who had come to Kabul by the day when the Taliban were entering Kabul.
So it's all those people are now who were already short of work or employment, I'm assuming, have even in the worst situation than they were before?
See, these people had different jobs, occupations, and works. Some of them farmers, some of them government employees, some of them small, were largely into SMEs, these small and medium enterprises, and some of them were the daily labor and different things. So it means that all of them are now disturbed, and somehow that flow of a normal life has been no more there. People lost their jobs, people lost their particularly right when spring happens in Afghanistan, it is the harvest season, and this time the entire battlefield and the transition happened right when the spring started. So the harvest season has been largely harmed, and anything that comes out to the Afghanistan is still an agrarian society. So anything that comes out in spring wouldn't be here this time. So people are hardly hit, and people are a lot of things has been not as it should have been for the people now, and this will take a long time for them to recover.
And also, we've had a conversation about this before, that a lot of aid or international relief funds that often get sent to Afghanistan also have not been spent in the right way, or they have been mismanaged. If you would want to comment on some of that, and how the distribution of the funds have not been fair and impactful for the people on the ground.
See, I'll just give you one example. After the 2001 intervention of the US, $3.9 billion has been spent as part of the humanitarian assistance. But if you look at the situation with 54% of poverty and the still 18.4 million people in need of humanitarian assistance, you can definitely guess that this money has largely been wasted, because this is only one country doing this much. You have the UN and the whole international community engaged in humanitarian activities and relief activities, but you see that the actual beneficiaries has largely been ignored, and very few has been done to them. I mean, I can definitely say that many organizations who were engaged in these sort of activities did commercialize this issue, and we saw very normal people becoming so rich within a day, and also the lack of data and lack of familiarity with the grassroots, as well as the complex situation in Afghanistan. And the remote areas where so many of these organizations were not able to go and access those areas where the true vulnerable people were living is one more reason of these humanitarian assistance being wasted. Many of the organizations which were engaged in this part could not travel to many far remote areas, and they would largely do whatever they required from people in Kabul, and Kabul was not the whole Afghanistan. The whole 34 provinces of Afghanistan and 38 million people did not live in Kabul, and these people could not go out of Kabul because of security and other restrictions. So that is why that I can say that the humanitarian assistance did not reach to the true needy ones.
And also, with the, do you think some of it were because the contractors were corrupt on the ground, the organizations who were commissioned with this work, there were corruption and also mismanagement of funds, which you've already highlighted, and also there's level of poverty within people, even in UK. So we are seeing there must be people in Afghanistan who are destitute and who are extremely poor in comparison to the ones who can just have the bread on table. So are those people then have not been reached, I'm assuming?
Yes, as I said before, if one country spends 3.9 billion money in humanitarian relief, And then you still have 18.4 million people out of 35 million people in dire need of humanitarian assistance. Then you can figure out that things did not
it's
go
not
well.
gone to go. And does that include everyone, like charities around the world, international aid, UN, government? Does that include all parties? Negligence?
Well, I would say there must have been organizations who were sincere and who did their part properly, particularly the small private ones. But overall, the huge organizations, the big organizations which were involved, I think either they were not able to get the right data, or there were other issues and factors involved. But overall, I can say that the humanitarian assistance was not that effective, which should have been otherwise.
And also, you know, what is the situation to people crossing the border to Pakistan? Because we've seen on various news channels that there's a lot of migration. You know, refugees are leaving, or people in Afghanistan are trying to leave to different countries. So where can they leave to? Because we know the UK has taken 20,000, which is not the figure. You know, it's not. Lots of people here disagree with the offer that Western countries have offered. So how many are going to Pakistan and Turkey and Iran? Are people moving still?
You see, there are different refugees or different people who leave Afghanistan. There are the ones who has the ability to make a longer trip, and there are the ones who does not have the ability of making a far journey, and they are just able to go to the nearest destinations. And looking at the geographical location of Afghanistan, which is a landlocked country, we have our immediate neighbors, Iran and Pakistan, who has to bear the brunt of the refugees. Although this time a new dimension was added to the refugee crossings, which largely also happened to Central Asia. Right now we have refugees going to, or Afghans leaving to Tajikistan, which shares a border with Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. But still, I can say that the majority of the people would leave to Pakistan and Iran, and then the ones who are better off economically would make it to Turkey, and some to India. To India is also a destination, and the ones who are too good economically would make it to Europe and other places. But the larger recipient of the refugees is still our immediate neighbors, particularly Pakistan.
So is it because it costs more to go to Europe than Pakistan? So the ones who have less money will go to Pakistan. The one who have more money will go to Europe. So it's not fair somehow, is it?
Of course, and at times not only money. There are people who are rich who has money, but they will not be given a visa. So visa restrictions plus expenses plus. A common man would find it very easy to go to Pakistan, particularly to Peshawar, where he speaks the same language, and it's almost the same people. Rather than going to Europe, where he has never been, he's unfamiliar, he doesn't know English, and he cannot make it to Europe, or cannot adjust to Europe. So there are different factors, but economic factor and lack of resources is the fundamental one for making a short trip to neighboring countries rather than long trips.
And do you think it's fair for UK to offer support for or to take 20,000 refugees? Do you think that number is justified? Because I'm in UK, so I can only speak for this country.
I would say one thing, that if the United Kingdom takes 20,000 people from Afghanistan, they would only secure and provide a safe place and environment to those 20,000 people. What about then the 38 million people who live in Afghanistan? I think instead of taking these people, instead of taking pockets of these people to their countries, it's better to make the whole of this country
develop,
a safe place so that the 38 million people are safe. For example, you are taking 5 vulnerable women from Afghanistan. What about the 20 million vulnerable women of Afghanistan? You cannot take them all. And by taking 5 vulnerable women, you cannot solve the problem of the whole women of Afghanistan. So taking 20,000 people is not the solution. Rather, they have to step up the humanitarian and relief activities in Afghanistan for the 38 million people that remains here. Because whatever happens in Afghanistan now, Western countries, particularly US and UK, are directly responsible for this.
And all the countries who have had direct military intervention for the right or the wrong reasons in Afghanistan have got an obligation to support so this is one of the things that we're doing here is from Moonlight Trust. We do a lot of campaigning, lobbying MPs and Parliament, and maybe we would ask you to speak at Parliament one day at Moonlight Trust event. We could go live with you or in future if you can visit us. But with Moonlight Trust, we work with grassroots communities, community-led projects, on the ground where we empower them. And that's what the intention is after this interview, that with your support, we will be able to move forward with some of that work to support some of the most needed. So there's a question from a friend. Okay, how can we get aid into those that need the most? Okay, so first of all, the question is what is needed the most? And also some of our charity partners like Focus for Hope, they said they'll support us with this campaign. So what is the greatest need on the ground? What do people need the most? Okay, maybe long term they need school education.
I think the most immediate families who need support are the households which were headed by female workers. There are a lot of families in Afghanistan whose father or the young brother or son of the family, who was basically the breadwinner or whatsoever you call it, has either been killed or has and he's no more there. So the woman of the family, the female of the family, has to take responsibility. And now those women are at home, and we don't yet know whether they will be able to come back and join the public life or whatsoever they were doing to feed their children. So I think those are the immediate ones who needs help and assistance. Second is those families who were dependent on daily labor. And you see, it's been almost a month that there's no work. Everything has stopped, and these people have no saving, and they will very soon go to the ultra poor and to a state of destitutes. So according to me, these two categories, the households headed by women and families who were dependent on daily labor, are the immediate families who needs cover. And then we can go to those people who have lost jobs, particularly those families who have lost jobs and they are no more able to do job. And then those IDPs who had something made back then and now it is destroyed, and they really have to start from zero. They have to be covered. These are the immediate people who needs humanitarian and relief assistance and help.
And also, so you mentioned there are a lot of IDPs. Do you think there's a question about IDPs? People are saying how we can support IDPs. So is there a system where people can find out that where are the internally displaced people and who's like you said, there's a different level of poverty and who's destitute and who's desperate. Is there a place they go to in Kabul or Afghanistan where they say, well, I'm an IDP, I need help, I don't have anything.
In Afghanistan, looking at the nature of the problem, we had a particular ministry called the Ministry of Returnees and IDPs and stuff. So which largely deals with the problem of refugees abroad and returnees and as well as IDPs. And any movement by the population from one side to another side is largely covered by this ministry. So there are lists already that who was displaced from where to where, and has he returned back or no. So there is data with the this ministry. As I saw it, when people started moving from provinces to Kabul, the government and this particular ministry created camps. They opened mosques, and as also they opened parks for these people to settle and spend their day and night there. And then there were these humanitarian organizations, like I can give you an example of the one of the organizations which my brother works at, is the Muslim Hands. They were helping, and also there were individuals, like I myself called all my friends, whoever I knew were capable of helping. I called them, they sent me money, and then I went and saw the situation, talked to them, and whatever they needed, I provided it on the limited capacity that I had. So yes, there are organizations involved, there are groups involved, and there is a huge an entire ministry involved. And although I would say there are problems within the ministry, there is always nepotism, favoritism, and all these things play their part. But still, there is the data, and if all that data along with the ground realities is properly assessed, I think we will be able to find out the most needy ones.
And also, you know, because I know the banking services are terminated, and Western Union recently said that they would not operate for next few days or so, or a couple of weeks. So there's questions about aid. So which neighboring countries' borders are open or are allowing the aid to come in? I'm assuming is Pakistan and Turkey?
As I told you before, Afghanistan is a landlocked country, so anything that comes from outside comes largely through Pakistan and at times through Iran. So these two, anything that comes from any country has to cross these two countries, or at times from Central Asia. But looking at the situation now, I think the only viable option would be Pakistan. Because that is quick and shorter.
Yeah. How long does it take for a lorry to get from Peshawar to or from Pakistan to get to Afghanistan? How long is the journey if there's an emergency aid needed? Do you know how long does it take? Okay, I think it's frozen again. But all those who are asking questions. Yes, I can hear you. I'm just reading some of the questions as well. Yes, go on, please answer. Yes, I can hear you. Okay, I can hear you. I'm just trying to read some of the questions. Okay. So for those of you who've just joined in, yeah. Okay, for those of you who just joined us, just to let you know, we have Fahim live from Kabul. Okay, Fahim, are you back? Okay. Okay. We have Fahim live from Kabul, who's the head of international affairs at Kardan University and also a political analyst. He's currently doing a live stream with us to explain the situation on the ground and the catastrophe, the humanitarian catastrophe that is unfolding given the current situation. I'm just waiting that he will be back with us. Okay, I'll just read some of your questions. We can be opportunities. Thank you. Okay. is there any reason based which we can be optimistic that the poverty level will be lessened and the refugees? Okay, I've got your question. I will come back. Okay, thank you for everyone who's with us. I just think we've lost Fahim one more time, guys. You're just gonna have to bear with us because as we understand that the network and Wi-Fi in Kabul may not be at the same speed or standard that what we have in UK in terms of technology. We just trying to connect back with him. Okay. Fahim, there's some questions as well that I'd like to ask that people are asking. So I don't know if you want to finish what you were saying, then I've got another question.
It's okay, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, there's somebody's just asked a question that is there any reason that people should be optimistic that poverty levels will lessen or reduce and one day refugees can come return to their home?
Well, this depends largely on the future composition and nature of the government. If we have an all-agreed government and the war and battles end in Afghanistan and the government is all free for developmental activities, and this government is recognized and given the international legitimacy and the international aid and humanitarian assistance flow starts back to Afghanistan, there is a hope of that this country will develop, there will be peace, and every Afghan would love to return back to their country because no place is like your own country. But if things go the other way, then I think there's no hope.
And also, is there a sense of security and peace? I know there's a question about freedom, but is there a sense of security and peace amongst people in Afghanistan now because the war has stopped from, you know, Taliban side and government and US side, so the actual war has halted? Or are there more threats now for people to worry that, you know, are there any other internal groups that which may attack? So is there a fear in the community?
There is a concern that we hear a resistance 2.0 developing in north. It's taking its formation, and the son of Ahmad Shah Massoud, the slain commander who opposed the Taliban, is seemingly busy arranging a 2.0 resistance. Now, the people of Afghanistan largely hope that things could be settled through political negotiations, and there's a settlement between the Taliban and this resistance people, and they are assured of being part of the government. But if that fails and there is a war between the resistance and the Taliban, then there is a concern of a renowned conflict in the country.
And what is the future of women? Because I know there's a lot of questions about women, and I want to share a story that when I was in refugee camps in Greece, I visited some of the camps where there was Afghan women, and I just want to share an example of the hospitality of Afghan people that, you know, because they were in refugee camps and we were supporting them with aid, you know, they felt very obliged to give something back. And I kept saying that, you know, we don't want, you know, I don't want anything. And they didn't have any food, or because they were in camps, you know, we were giving out food and clothes. So what they didn't have a drink. So what they did was put some sugar in the water, and then they said, no guest will leave empty or without having anything from us. And they made me that. And I always remember this story. And also one of my driver and translator was an Afghan refugee in Greece. And what happened that our Airbnb guy didn't turn up. So when we went there, it was 11 o'clock at night, and the guy whose apartment we were renting didn't turn up. And what Tamim did was he had one bedroom apartment, and his wife and children were there. So he said to me, I said, you know, this is not your problem that our apartment guy is not turned up, and we'll check into a hotel. And he said, no. I cannot leave you on the road, because there were 4 of us and we were girls. And he moved his wife and children out of his apartment to a friend's house. And he said, you will stay here. So this is what the hospitality of the Afghan people is, that if we ever needed them, or if the world ever needed them, they would open their door and surely feed you. So it's quite a sad situation that they are having to go through this, and they have such less attention and support from the international community. So my next question is that what is the future of women in Afghanistan? Because there's a lot in the Western media that is focusing only on women. Are they going back to work? Okay, I think it's we don't have long now. We've got like another 5 minutes or so, and I would hope that Fahim can join us back. But thank you for all those asking questions. Somebody's asking if they can join. I mean, in today's interview, we said we were just going to let Fahim speak and we all learn. We're going to do another live feed, hopefully, where you guys can come live and ask questions and answers, because this interview was in response to all those questions that we have been receiving at Moonlight Trust. I don't know if it's frozen again. I think it has. Just bear with me. Okay, guys, thank you for all those who are still with us. Fahim, I'm sorry, we only have 10 minutes left, so we won't keep you for long. Sorry, I know it's we're asking you lots of questions and your internet is breaking.
I'll briefly tell you that Afghans are famous for their hospitality. We are hospitable people, and the reason for that is that we are very sincere and honest when it comes to guests, regardless of whatever the guest brings in the short term or long term. We honestly and wholeheartedly sacrifice or do whatever is in our limit. And the green tea, when you come to an Afghan's house, it is the first thing they offer you is the green tea, and when you accept that, it means everything is good between the host and the guest. Okay. So yeah, that's how we are. We are still typical traditional people.
Yes, and also if there were refugees, then you would also open your doors for them. If there was a war in another country, you would let people in. And that's how because from my hospital, all the experiences that I've had with Afghan refugees, I've learned so much from them. So the question I was asking you was that what is the future of women in Afghanistan? Are they going back to work? Have they been told they can go back to work? And the women around you that are friends and relatives, do they feel safe to go back to work?
See, one thing is clear, that the Afghan women have changed over the course of these 20 years. They have had participation in public life, and they had high positions, including that of ministers and deputy ministers and other positions. And now the women of Afghanistan are largely out of their house. So it would be very difficult for them to go back and start a life where they have no say or they have no rule. But at the same time, the constitutional views of Taliban are very limited. There hasn't been much of discussion on these things, and we hardly know what exactly their thoughts are on women's education.
Okay, guys, just to let you know that Okay, I think we're stuck again. So the whole purpose of this session is that after this, we are going to launch a campaign with the help of Fahim and other community groups on the ground to mobilize them, to be as cost effective as possible, and to reach those people that Fahim has mentioned have been neglected and ignored even when the aid was coming. There's a lot of nepotism in Afghanistan, that people would often not distribute it fairly or distribute it to the people that they actually know. And as I think we've seen, there was a lot of reports on corruption as well. So the whole idea is that how we can be at the best of service to people in Afghanistan, and hear from them. So the whole purpose of today's session is that we learn from them that how we can best help them rather than getting information from the media. Okay, I think we've lost Fahim again. I'm so sorry about this, but I think the fact that he can speak to us is a blessing on its own. Okay. So basically what we're trying to do is launch a campaign where we can make sure that we help the right people in the best possible way and be at the best of the service to people in Afghanistan on ground. And I also think that, there's people coming into UK, but they will get some support. So there's one in Afghanistan who will get no support, and those we are trying to reach. Welcome back, Fahim. If you want to finish your question about women. So you think there might be a change, because I'm also assuming that, Taliban families themselves were different 20 years ago, and I'm sure they now have smartphones, and they have access to technology, and I'm assuming that they now have changed their mindset about a lot of things, because technology has bridged a lot of barriers around the world. Like I'm speaking to you now from UK.
Yes, I think they are positively different now.
Okay, so that's a good. So one last question that it's very sad what has happened. All the atrocities that people in Afghanistan have endured. And people always ask, what is the hope? And I personally think hope is people like you and all those refugees that I met who still want to make the best out of life and give so much back to the world and be a better contributor to their community. But what is the hope for Afghanistan, if you had to say right now and going forward?
Well, I think Afghanistan has to go forward, and we have to go forward, and we have to adapt to the situation in such a way that we should not be saying that the Taliban have returned, but rather we should be saying that a new chapter.
Okay, I think we've lost Fahim, and I don't know if he'll join back with him. And I would like to end this on this note that thank you everyone who's participated in this session, and it will be recorded, and we'll be sharing the link so you can share it with as many people as possible. As you now have heard yourself, that there is a lot of misinformation circulating on social media and basically on the news, and it's better to ask the people on the ground to say what they need, and we would that's what we would be doing. Following on from this interview, we will be launching a campaign to make sure that we can help some of the most neediest and forgotten, and hoping that the future will be much better, and peace prevails, and we can all visit Afghanistan and maybe volunteer there, for those of you who would like to volunteer, and also for those of you who want to volunteer and support Moonlight Trust here, or support this campaign. Do get in touch with me, because Moonlight Trust is a small charity. 90% of the work is done by volunteers, and we need your support more than anything else. And as you've heard from Fahim itself, that it's the grassroots and small charities that have made a difference, rather than multi-million corporations at times. So I would highly recommend for you to join this campaign. and offer any support that you can. This will be shared with IG and YouTube as well. And I'd just like to say thank you for everyone who cares and has shown compassion and kindness towards these people. And I can speak on their behalf because I've met refugees in camps. They are forever so grateful, and they would, if we ever needed a home or if our lives were threatened, they will equally open their doors for us. And like I said, these women who didn't have anything, to give it to me, they actually gave me some sugar in the water, and I would never forget that, because they said, you will never go from our house without having a treat from us. So thank you. I hope it's been a useful session. Do connect with me, message me, let me know what did you think of this, and basically we'll hopefully join again. Okay, I need to stop this now.